It's an exciting Monday afternoon. We are here once again on this platform to talk about issues that affects you and I in this continent, Africa. And the program, Africa Discourse. I am Wilson Marshall. Have you heard about this word, echo? As a note sound vibrating right now. I mean, echo. Now that, my friends, is the proposed currency for ECOWAS sub-region. That is the name of the currency. Now, it's been worked on for almost 30 years now, and it's going to come into fruition come 2020. Singular currencies for West Africa sub-region. And talks have been wagging, opinions have been coming up from various angles about the implication, the impact of this singular currency. Is it going to all go well for the West African region? What about Africa as a continent? Don't forget, late Muammar Gaddafi, he has this dream that Africa should work as one, having a single currency. But since his death, his dreams were like truncated. And here is ECOWAS, the West African sub-region, coming together, saying, apart from us working together for security purposes, we should have a singular currency to tie us together for that economic might. And people have been talking about, what about other countries in Africa region whose currency has been controlled by France? Yes, and I'm talking about Nigeria. Doesn't have much problem because it's like independent currency. How are they going to measure this? What and what should they do so that they will not be losers at the end of the day? So that the workload, so to speak, economically speaking, will not be so much in some selected few countries. Don't forget the case of the Eurozone. And of course, the Euro. Anyway, with me here in the studio to really talk on this matter, I have two veterans here with me in the studio. We're still expecting the likes of Stan Osaza when it comes to join us in the studio. I'd like to introduce a lecturer, a professor. When we talk about business, talk about politics, talk about economy, he's well grounded. Johnny, welcome. Professor Anthony Ijewere, welcome to the show, sir. I appreciate your coming.
Thank you.
All right. Sitting very close to him is a legal practitioner and environmentalist. When we talk about political analysis, economic analysis, talk about commenting on social issues, he's well grounded. He's also an activist. Johnny, welcome. Barrister Chima Williams. Barrister, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Wilson, for having me.
All right. Prof,
Yes.
30 years has gone by, almost gone by. This vision was birthed almost 30 years ago, and come 2020 is going to come into fruition.
It was this crash.
Oh, come on! Hold on!
No, there are reasons for it.
All right, so just take it up from there for me to say crash.
Yes, it's a crash. Because you see, if you look at generally the situation in many West African countries, economically they're not doing well. You cited that of Europe, whereby they have this, they were able to come together and fuse their currency together, and they now have a common currency. But is it still working according to how it's supposed to work? Because each individual country has its own peculiarities. You know, the level of trade activity in country A is not the same as country B. Especially most West African countries where the level of poverty is very high.
Indeed.
Their gross national product is very low. Their gross domestic product is very low. The level of productivity is you see, what determines the strength of a currency is the level of business activity, productivity. It's not the ones we have in this part of the world, whereby government gag, exchange rate, and they start going to central bank to baby feed currencies, their local currencies, and that gives the impression that the currency has appreciated. You know, before now, in 2015, our exchange rate, for example, was between 120 something to $1, but today it's 360. So are you saying the economy is doing well? And if you look at other West African countries, ECOWAS countries, the same problem they are experiencing. In fact, their own case is even worse. So now, how do you now expect such countries to now come together and have a common currency? It's going to be very, very rough, because one, the level of productivity is very low, the level of technology is very, very low, and there's instability in government, and so on and so on. And so that's why I said it's still going to crash. You were talking about 30 years ago, yet it has not come to fruition, which means something is fundamentally wrong, and these are some of the indices I've just enumerated. Yes.
All right, before I could even talk about the introduction of the topic, you just said it will soon crash. Barrister Chima Williams, do you share the same views and opinions?
Well, for me, I like to look at issues from the positives. There is no policy that will be introduced, there is no plans that will be introduced that will not have some iota of positive in it. Okay, because the people that thought it out, you just cited Mama Gaddafi, may God bless his soul, forgive his sins, accept him. Now, this is a dream that Gaddafi had, for so many years, okay, trying to bring Africa together as one united entity, okay? And you see, yes, it is because balkanized, we cannot make it. And it is not by accident that Africa, West Africa sub-region is balkanized into some tiny countries. If all the countries in West Africa were as big as and as strong as Nigeria, I don't think Prof will be saying, what he's saying now. No. Okay? So, making sure that we have these little colonies called countries that are controlled by their former colonial masters, up till now, is to make sure that we remain a pariah, sub-region and a pariah continent. That others will bring their goods and services and test it in our climes and use us as guinea pig for experimental commercial purposes and other even scientific purposes. But I think I see, if my own problem will not even be the analysis that Prof has given. Yeah. My problem will be whether the West African sub-region presidents or heads of governments will have the political will, to bring this to fruition in 2020. After all, what has caused it, in addition to what Prof has analyzed, not to take off for this past 30 years or thereabout. Now, if we get it right, even the Eurozone, you see, there are advantages that comes with common currency. We are talking about the West African sub-region is talking about security, working together to provide security. And the starting point was, the ECOWAS free movement, movement, trade, and humans within the ECOWAS sub-region, where you now have the ECOWAS passports, so-called. Right. Okay? Now, if you take it from there, and we now have one currency, definitely it will strengthen the West African market.
I'll come to you on that. Definitely it will strengthen the West African market. Now, that is the standpoint of Barrister Chima Williams. It's all about the echo. Now, let's take a look at it from his own angle, strengthening the West African market. Yes, there was a meeting held in Abuja, and of course, the president went to Niger Republic, all because of these sub-regions to come together to have this cohesive strength, so to speak, to challenge or to fight or to subdue insecurity. I want to talk about security being at the forefront. Economy will follow suit. Don't you think if these things should happen, because they are determined for them to say that 2020 to be launched, that means somewhere along the line, maybe it has been printed already. Don't think it's going to give us an advantage as West African sub-region?
Wisdom, my brother, is ideas are beautiful to conceive. But implementation of that idea is a different matter entirely. You see, especially when you consider the characteristics. See, the common currency thing has its own advantages. There's no question about that. E.g., the countries, they can trade, do common trade with one another. And it will be cheaper to trade among ECOWAS countries. What country A does not have, country B may have it. And it's in the principle of what you call comparative advantage, that each country should, where a country have you have its highest level of comparative advantage, you know, it should also use it to take advantage of those countries that doesn't have such resources. It's like trade by barter. If you have oil, then I can substitute it for your yam and all that. And so if we say each country should trade in those goods and services, they have the greatest comparative advantage over others. By implication, it means it will help it will promote the trade in West Africa sub-region. Definitely, it will promote trade, and these colonial masters, they'll be denied, their hard grip on the economy of their former colonies, and trade will flourish. There's no question about that. Then you talk about then that will force most of these West African countries to develop their industries the more. Then if they do that, then skills will come out of there. The level of technology will be technology acquisition will become higher. And at the end of the day, it will be a plus. And it will also promote sub-regional movement. Tourism, if you like. Because if I want to go and do business in Ghana now, or Libya, or Liberia, I have to travel there and see what it is. And so it will promote what you call sub-regional unity among West African states. And that is the beauty of it. But beyond that, we are saying that, hey, where are the governments in this country? In fact, let's start from security. Are the government in this country is able to deal with these ICE people, these, what do you call them, terrorists, international terrorists, who are ravaging West African countries? They'll not be able to deal with that. Because whether we like it or not, it's a major aspect of allowing trade to flourish. If they have not been able to deal with that, then how can they deal with trade? We are aware of how, in our own case, how Boko Haram were bombing mosques, which is a major part of communication if you want to do business. We are aware of that. We are aware of where people, Fulani herdsmen, we rape people, kidnap people, and all that. We are aware of all. So how do you do business under that condition? We are aware of how Boko Haram itself will also bomb a lot of business interests, as long as they have this what they call European interest in that business, because they say anything education, anything English, they don't want it, and so they will not be able to deal with that problem. Right. And besides, the economy of most West African countries is very, very bad. And even if you, for example, this is part of what we are doing.
Levels which compromise national financial equilibrium and funding.
Breaking transmission. Now that was a meeting that gave birth to the ECHO after 30 years. Well, I like to draw. Hold on now. Before you continue, I'd like to really say one thing. We have some Fulani headsmen, okay? They're not involved in rape or kidnapping. They have some that are just there doing their business of cattle business. All right. So continue from where you start.
I understand that. Yeah. You see, we take the case of Nigeria, for example, whereby we have a budget of 6 trillion naira, and we are using 1.5 trillion to service the debt. How do you survive? How do you survive like that? Then how do you now want to be talking about even your own local currency? You can't manage it. You are talking about it. So we have that. Then Nigeria is now occupying the highest poverty level in the world, with 870 million Nigerians under poverty level. So how is such a country now, when their domestic financial policy, they will not be able to manage, then how would they be talking about international currency thing? So the ECOWAS countries should, first of all, they should stop running more than their legs can take them.
All right, hold on now, because it's like you are just on the negative, bringing up factors about negativity in this context. Yes, you did. Yes. Now, for what he said, his last statement will give rise to the next question. Talking about running more than their shadow. Are they putting the cart before the horse, Barrister Chima Williams?
Well, you see, I don't know, perhaps because of backgrounds. There is no country in the world that is self-sufficient. No, not even one, including the United States. Okay? Interdependence of nations and the realization of the potentialities of each nation to provide an advantage for the commonality of nations, is what has brought about the campaign for a united nation. Otherwise, every country would have relapsed and be doing their own thing. Okay? There is no country in the world that does not have a challenge. I want to address the issue of security. As at today, globally, there is no single country in the world that has been able to single-handedly tackle security problems in their country.
For the degree.
Okay? So, each looked up to others, and if we are looking at, for instance, the Boko Haram thing, that seems to be a regional problem, you cannot solve it alone. There have to be regional cohesion so that if those that are coming from Niger into Nigeria are stopped in Niger, they will have access to Nigeria. And Nigerian government and Nigerian people will be able to minimally handle the ones that is happening in their country, okay? And exchange of security information. Of course, we may not have gotten it right completely, but a right step, no matter how little taken, it is a good step in the right direction. So we must look at it. Yes, there is none. The disadvantages, are there for us to see, given our developmental paradigm, okay? And where we stand in global rankings. But should we go home and continue, because this is the architect. Of course, it was purely, intellectually calculated to make sure that we remain at this level that we'll continue to talk about nothing is working. Can you imagine if West Africa was to act like one country? Okay? What is the comparative advantage that Nigeria has over many countries in the world? Nigeria has the market because you have the population. You have some, creative minds in the country. So if you use this, if we have the eco currency, where you are not only free to move from Nigeria to Ghana, okay? But equally, you know that you are not going to be harassing yourself thinking of how do I exchange my Naira for the Ghanaian cedi, okay? Because you have one currency. And for those that travels out, Europe, it is not all of Europe, that is in the Schengen group. But the entire Europe has the euro currency. But some European countries still have their own local national currencies. So that it makes it easier when I am dealing with a Nigerian. For instance, if we have the ECO and we have Naira, if I am dealing with my Nigerian brother, I'll use my Naira. If I am going to do business in Togo, I'll use the ECO. Okay? So if we look at it from that perspective, we should encourage our governments to take that launch. Why is it that, the other big countries, developed countries, will not support Africa coming together?
We'll come into
to
that.
Operate at one level.
We are coming to that. Now, you just hold on. Talking about the grip of the colonial masters. It's all about echo. Yes, in case it just sounds somehow strange to you, that is the proposed currency for the West African sub-region. It says going to be launched come 2020. The dream has been on for the past 30 years, and are saying that come 2020, we are going to see the echoes. Just joining us right now in the studio is a vibrant youth, a political analyst, Stanley Osaze. Stan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
You came a bit late. What happened?
Due to some unforeseen occurrence that is purely above my control.
All right, fine. Now, it's all about the echo. They've been talking at length, the good side and the not so good side. What are your views and opinion on this?
Very firstly, we agree to the fact that the only way we can have a very stronger and prosperous West Africa is for us to come together as one. We as well agree to the fact that the word ECOWAS is just a nomenclature, but the ability for us to be able to interchange, interact, and become one can only be better addressed if there is single resources used to consolidate on the existing relationship and agreement between the sub-Africa group. Whether we like it or not, we agree to the fact that if you look at the European Union or the Schengen, which was the classical example cited by my amiable co-panelists here, you agree to the fact that the reason why these persons have strong power in the global scene is because of the coming together of group to form the euro currency. Whether we like it or not, we know quite well that the American dollar still dominates the global system, global financial system. But we agree to the fact that the same euro is a very strong competitive resources when it comes to the American dollar. So in the same vein, when you have this in sub-Saharan Africa, it will go in no small way to ensure that West Africa progress economically. And again, there are issues that bother us on business ties. Whether you like it or not, if we now come together as one, as sub-Saharan Africa, if the Western market or any other persons want to do deals with Nigeria or any other sub-Saharan West Africa country, you agree to the fact that it will be ease. There will be ease in doing business. And when it comes to issue of changing resources from one place to another, it will be difficult. It will now be very, very easy because we now have a well-unified, organized resources. So it will help in no small way to consolidate on the development of not just the host countries alone, but to as well other countries doing businesses with West Africa sub-region.
You see, let me raise some issues based on what the last speaker have just said. You see, when you are talking about euro today, what makes euro popular? What has made the exchange rate, as compared to dollar, what has made it stronger? If you put dollar on the ground now on the table and euro, which of the currency do you think people will rush for? Is euro, because the exchange rate is higher. Are you getting so? So the issue is that what has made that euro to be higher than dollar or other local currency is because of the level of business activity, because the countries involved, in coming together to form this euro thing. Their level of technology is very high. Their level of business activity is very high. Their country tends to be more stable as compared. Yeah, but my learned man, they are very learned people. My learned man said just said not too long ago, that in Africa that. This currency thing, that there's no country that doesn't have security challenges. Fine. I mean, that is true. It's just like saying there's no home without quarrel. So that's true. But what is the level of insecurity? That's what we are talking about. You see, these countries that have come to form the common currency of Europe, what's the level of economic stability? What's the level of security stability? They are more stable than not. So if we now, in view of some of those variables, those characteristics I've earlier identified, poor government policy, poor economic activity. In fact, the economic activity is almost low, and most of them are tied to the apron strings of advanced nations in the name of former colonies and all that. So they are not strong enough. So when you now put that currency, echo currency, pari passu with the euro, you see that our currency will be low. So the purpose, the value of our echo currency will be low as compared to that of euro. And therefore, many people may not even patronize it Many business people, they may prefer to patronize the dollar. When they get to the country of business, they will exchange to the local currency and do their business.
All right, Dr. Williams, over to you.
Yeah, you see, I would have expected that we would have looked at history because the Euro zone or the Euro currency, no nation was born with it. And we know when the Euro currency started. Why did the European countries come together to form Euro zone and create the Euro currency? It was in challenge to the domination of the American dollar and the British pound sterling. Okay? Now, even with the formation of Euro, does it still make the Euro currency to be stronger than the British pound sterling? The answer is no. So, but the sense of oneness, the sense of each dragging the other, in Europe, within the Eurozone, at least we know countries that are in Europe that Nigeria is 20 times better than. But because they have all come together, they are now strengthened. Okay? It is about, you know, what resources do you have? Okay? Now, Prof, I am coming. The resource you have is one. Yes. The management of those resources is two. Okay? And what you put forward yourself. Most of the Euro countries, they are not richer than most of African countries in terms of natural resources. There is no argument about that. Okay? Perhaps because they understand their weaknesses and they understand the strength of their bigger brothers, they hide under those their bigger brothers to do business. And they are strengthened. And then we now begin to talk about a strong Eurozone. Okay? Now, if the ECO comes on board, of course, definitely there is none that will not have its challenge. And we do not, it would be utopic for anybody to think that once we form we have the ECO currency, then the ECO will be challenging the dollar or the euro.
The euro, we're saying.
Okay?
In value.
In value, it will not happen because we forget that there are other currencies that are regional currencies that are used that are lower than the dollar and others. Okay, now they have not closed shop.
All right, now you just want to know if this may interest you. Talking about United States of America, when Donald Trump came back from the G20 summit, he told them in America, you have to bring down the value of your currency because people tend to do business with countries like China, Japan with lower currency because they can easily purchase goods and services from them. It's left to you to think on it, or would you be playing the big brother, so to speak, which is not or will not be beneficial to us? If J. Trump can really say that. Anyway, just put out in one part of your head because I'll come back to that now. Stan, from what Prof said, he said it will fail. That was at the beginning, and he gave strong reasons. He gave the advantages and, of course, disadvantages. But it's like, according to him, the disadvantages outweighs the advantages. Now, do you see this thing failing?
You agree to the fact that before the European Union...
After 30 years, my brother. After 30 years. I want you to have that behind you.
Before they nurtured this,
yeah.
There was a series of challenges.
Okay.
Bedeviling the functionality of that particular resources. But at the end of the day, it was adopted. And as of today, we are now using it as a basis of making global comparison. Yeah. So I think, whether we like it or not, Africa must begin to think of how to develop. There is no harm in trying. Once again, you agree to the fact that the current political structure in the Africa context is a little bit deficient. It's not that really strong in terms of leadership structure. But now we have identified a particular problem. Don't you think that will be the basis or a starting point for us to begin to address the challenges militating against the leadership structure of Africa? So if this is a goal that has been established, that wants eco currency to begin to have a strong power, before every member nation ratifies it, people must have seats, nurtured idea, think of the bedeviling factor that will restrict the success of that particular resources. And at the end of the day, I strongly believe that solutions will be provided. So for now, let us begin to look at the benefit of this particular currency. Very firstly, it will unify the West Africa sub-region. Secondly, there will now be a very strong collaborative support in terms of managing the security architecture of West Africa sub-region. Thirdly, it will create a very wide market, because in this case, you can no longer see a Nigerian market as a Nigerian market alone. You will now begin to see it as a West Africa market, which will attract more foreign investors. Whether we like it or not, we know that we will agree to the fact that there are security challenges in our sub-Africa sub-region. But the truth is, when we address this security issue through a collaborative effort, the resultant of these resources will help in no small way to skyrocket economic development in Africa. Today, if you have that kind of resources on ground, you can as well negotiate with all other big resources around the world. But we're having one particular challenge. There is this big brother, the IMF, and the rest of them. They will do everything humanly possible to ensure that Africa fails in this regard. But I think when we open our market, we have single resources. At the end of the day, it gives room for more inflow for foreign exchange. So whether they dump your resources at the end of the day, let us try it now, because this is the time for Africa to wake up.
My brother, we should remember one very important factor when you talk about investment. We've had, as at last count, 26 companies have left the shores of Nigeria. One, because of insecurity, and two, we have low power generation. The environment is not friendly. And so going by his theory that investors will come in and what have you, investors don't put their money anywhere, anyhow. They invest in an economy because they believe that the investment is safe. And how come a lot of politicians will steal money? They go and stash it in Europe, in Swiss, America, and the rest of them. Why? Because they believe that that's a safe haven for their currency. You know, so in the same vein, if that's why I said the most West African countries, they have a very stinking background in terms of good governance, in terms of good economic system, in terms of managing the resources. With my brother lawyer that will have a lot of resources, I agree with him perfectly. But how do you manage these resources? 80% of Japanese raw materials, you know, they're imported. Japan don't have raw material. 80% of them, but today they are one of the top technologically developed nations. So the point I'm still making is that before investors will put their money somewhere, they must make sure that the country is stable, the economy is stable. I think we have to think of that.
So we should not.
Don't jump the gun, Professor Chima Williams, because the prof is standing, quoting, bringing out facts, and of course figures why this thing may not work. It's been there for 30 years, and right now they say by 2020 it must be launched.
Yeah. Well, I share the sentiments of Prof. Of course, if you don't look at what will stop you or what will stall the progress, then it means that you have not started, you know, thinking of success. Because success syndrome is that you must think of what can boost and then what can retard. And you are able to address both moving forward. That is the only way you can be successful. Now, I mean, when we are talking of this eco currency, it seems as if it is something that is going to fall from the moon or from the blues, okay? We've seen, even as poor as the CFA is, that is the French currency for the French colonial countries, colonized countries in West Africa. Are they not using it for trade and business? Okay? So the value that you attach to the currency, it is not the beginning and the end of the success of the failure of the implementation of the plan. But let's look at the other added advantages, the other value adds that this will bring. Okay? Now we have the situation in just recent past where there were problems for Nigerian business people in Ghana, for instance. Okay? If you are using the same currency and you see yourself as one, I do not think that that problem could have arisen to the level that, you know, it got to. That is one of the beauty, because definitely we must plan to launch out. There is no harm in trial, as my brother have said. Okay? Because everything that you are starting, there must be difficulties, because there must be a gestation period for anything, you know, that is going to be successful. You do not launch it today and expect that today it will overrun the market and make the West African sub-region market a bullish one. It will be a gradual process, building on blocks, until perhaps one day. Because let's ask ourselves, like my brother have said, and Prof equally alluded to it somehow, you know, if there will be nothing positive coming from the West African and African sub-region coming together under one platform, how come that the IMFs of this world, as my brother mentioned, we want us to continue to operate individually? Okay? Where any other country can come in and march on our head and decide for us what happens. Because one of the beautiful part of, you know, this economic arrangement, because currency comes with economic success or failure. Yes. Okay? Is that within the West African sub-region, about 19 countries or thereabouts, all the heads of state and heads of governments, all the 19, may not be totally porous at the same time.
All right. Okay.
There might be a good-headed one that will steer the rest and spur them into positive action if they are operating as one.
All right. Now, out of all these member states, which state do you think should spearhead this? Because that's what probably taking from that angle. Because from what he said, the majority of them, they are not viable economically. They are very, very feeble. So who do you think will spearhead this? Because someone must bear the brunt.
See, for now, before we think of who will spearhead it, let us understand something here. When you have ECO as currency, it's like you are now opening the economies of these individual nations that made up this group. That is to say, you cannot lock your economy, shut it up, then the next person will not be aware of your established financial or economic policy.
Hold on now.
I'm coming.
Not that I'm trying to interject you. Now, juxtapose this also with what happened in the Eurozone, where Greece's burden was carried by member states.
Yes, but if you liken the situation with this now, you will still agree to the fact when Greece were facing that particular challenge, there was dictate from the European Union. There were discussions from the European Union. They did not say, okay, because you are a sovereign nation, face this problem yourself. There was even an austerity plan placed on ground for Greece, and as we speak today, Greece have bounced back. So if you liken it,
they've not bounced back yet.
Listen,
and the brunt was carried by Germany.
Listen, but whether you like it or not, whether you like it or not, as we speak right now, the Eurozone is still very, very balanced. What about if these challenges before Greece alone, and there were no other country to come together to rescue this country? What would have been the situation right now? Greece, so the truth is, I have said it before now, there is no harm in trying, whichever way. For now, when we talk about the leadership role, apart from where here in Nigeria we have a series of economic challenges and leadership problems, you cannot say it is so in all other parts of West Africa sub-region. There are still some countries in Africa that has a very strong leadership structure that can better pilot this. So for now, let us not begin to drag the idea of we are the giant of this, we are the giant of Africa, we are the giant. No. Now every country must operate on the basis of humility. Every country must operate on the basis of public interest. Because even Prof here will agree to the fact that eco currency would have been the best if we have strong leadership.
Yes.
Now, that is why the Prof and others have a strong responsibility to advise these persons on how to move forward. Because if they are saying, because we don't have good leadership structure, let us just let it die natural death, it will not go well for all of us. So, Prof, believe you me, as a Prof, I'm challenging you, my leader, you have the responsibility to make it work. Now you understand. See, gone are the days where intellectuals will sit and begin to watch riffraff managing the affair of our nation. Gone are the days where we will allow some group of persons who will know quite well a disgruntled element. But because of the fact that we choose not to be part of it, we will not give them the opportunity to take charge of our country. No. Evil strive when good people decide to remain quiet and allow evil people to take charge of situation. So the likes of Prof and others, intellectuals, including some of us who are still growing under the ambient,
including the barrister,
as the case may be. Let us all look for a way to make this very, very functional. Then when it comes to the issue of leadership, in the set leadership structure, you must have what we call integrity. Not the political integrity that we have in Nigeria, where somebody will tell you they have integrity, but when they are acting, their action is very, very in contrast or inconsistent with integrity. But in this case, their integrities must be very, very clear. And again, there will be no favoritism, or there will be no corner cut in addressing issues that borders on economic concern. I think if we can come out with this kind of leadership, even Nigeria can act as a pivotal in the entire process. Right. So in a nutshell, we will have a stable West Africa if eco currency sees the light of the day. So, Prof, I am challenging you, sir, with all sense of respect and humility. I know you are an academic gladiator. Spearhead this process. Go and join the leadership of Africa to make it work.
You've heard him, Prof. He said when eco comes into the scene, everybody will buckle up.
Yeah, I love your volcanic approach to the whole thing. But we are also saying, and I'm very happy, when my friend here, Wilson, was talking about leadership team, and you said it's as good as zero. You know, and ab initio, right from the word go, that was my position. That, like my friend the barrister said, there are a lot of African countries that have resources. Is it gold, is it mentioning, is it oil and all that, but they've been managed very well. This is the issue. We have this, in this case of Nigeria, we have this petroleum industrial bill that has been in Senate over the years.
For more than 20 years.
Yes, but because of this not interest, because that is the reality on ground. I'm not formulating story at my level. I can't formulate story. But the northern people, they said their interests have not been taken care of in the petroleum industrial bill, and therefore, the thing will not see the light of the day. So how do we develop like that? And these similar things that are happening in Zimbabwe and most of these African countries, because the leadership problem. You see, they don't see the country as a project. They see their bank account as a project. And of course, those around them who support their political interests. So how do we make progress like that? Because when you are talking about the Eurozone, these are people, they articulate their ideas very well. They have mission, they have vision. And they tailor most of their discussion towards the future, the vision of the various countries. And at the end of the day, they now have a policy, a guiding policy, that will protect their interests. And of course, that was why they succeeded in having common currency. But is that the same situation in West African countries? These are questions we should ask ourselves, because rather most African leaders, if you like, by extension, West African leaders, ECOWAS, if you watch what has been happening in the past, it's all conflict of leadership. It's conflict of leadership, where one political party will win an election, the other one will say, no way. If I'm not there, the whole thing will spoil. And whereby a government will put up a good policy. When a new government comes into power, it derails the whole thing, bastardize the whole thing. It starts from a new platform. And that starting from a new platform is how to see his bank account. Not even the interest, not the interest of the country. You see, in the case of Nigeria, a lot of state government could not pay salary. Then I say, okay, From federal government, you take bailout fund. They rather use the bailout fund for their personal security purposes. No security votes are not questioned. And they now help themselves. So how do we take off from there? Because, you see, in international relations, your domestic policy is a reflection of your international policy. So, in other words, if you don't put your home in order, how do you now come together and solve? It's like two blind people leading themselves. That's why we are going to have problem of leadership, like my friend said.
Mr. Chima Williams, you have the floor right now because he's still sticking to his gun, bringing out more facts. But from what stands, they say once the echo come into the scene, everybody will buckle up. Do you believe that?
Well, I do not 100% subscribe to that because we have to be realist. And on a platform like this, you know, what we owe the audience is to tell them the truth.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Irrespective of, you know, whether anybody likes to hear that truth or not. Okay? Yes, the facts that Prof have reeled out are there. There are no questions about them. Okay? But the point some of us are making is that how do we correct those abnormalities? Okay? Now, don't we see that if ECHO comes on board, it can like put peer pressure on those that are not doing well, you know, to look inward and look at what they are doing right and what they are not doing right, you know, providing learning opportunities for each other. And, you know, the question that you asked about leadership, okay? Now, there is no question about that because every group of nations know their abilities. They know those that they look up to. Now, when he talked about Greece, when you asked the question about Greece, now, West Africa have had their own issues, or when the military took over in some countries, we discussed it on this platform, even when elections were coming, we discussed it on this platform and gave suggestions on what should happen, not waiting for when the crisis erupts before everybody starts running helter-skelter. And it took the intervention of some other West African countries to stabilize those nations. Then, if we have done that, okay, who says that if we try, we cannot gradually begin? Of course, yes, our economies are very bad. We have bad leadership, agreed. But do we used to have it this way? Because Prof should know better than all three of us seated here, that there were times when Americans were coming to Nigeria the way Nigerians are going to America.
That's true.
So can't we look at, you know, where we missed it and begin to correct it? Okay? If my position is simple and will remain that, so long as African countries, so long as West African countries continue to operate in their individualistic, you know, pedestals, remaining the little mushroom group countries that we have. Of course, in Europe, they have mushroom countries too. Okay? But because they have identified with the bigger ones, whether we like it or not, as we said it, Nigeria may be the bad as we all describe it, but for me, I'm a proud Nigerian. All right.
I'm also a proud Nigerian.
There is no country that is better than Nigeria.
Yeah, right.
We can always be better.
Okay, we can always be better. Stand.
In this case,
yeah,
Nigerian cannot just be seen as a focal point to determine the success of the eco currency alone. We still have other sovereign nations, despite the fact that we have a very big landmass and in terms of population density, which is considered as one of the largest markets in West Africa. But there are still other sovereign nations with separate economic policy. The first benefit is this. When this country agreed to operate ECO, regardless of the economic nature, the ECO resources will have more value than individual country resources in sub-Saharan Africa, West Africa. The first approach, coming together as one to have these resources, even no matter the economic nature, the money will be strong on its own. It might not be able to compete as at now with the euro or the British pounds, but first, it will be different from the individual resources like the naira, like the CDs, as the case may be. That is one. The secondly, it opens our economy. Every of this individual country have the responsibility to ensure that this particular eco resources works. That is to say, when there is security challenge in Ghana, when there is security challenge in Nigeria, the man in Abuja and the man in Accra want to do everything humanly possible to see how to cope the challenges that will militate the progress of that particular resources or currency, as the case may be. So, coming together first to have eco currency is a threat to all other big resources. The IMF and the rest of them will never allow it. They will do everything humanly possible to separate it. Do you know why? Because if Africa is given the opportunity to operate in this form, it will threaten them. Let me give you a classical example. Africa produces one of the largest cocoa production in the world, but we get just 2% of the global revenue, $100 billion worth of trade, but we just get 2% from this, and these things are coming out from here. So at least to some extent, when you now have a stronger, in fact, this thing is supposed to grow beyond the West Africa sub-region. If we have a stronger Africa where government relates with sincerity and fairness, believe you me, Africa has the capacity whatsoever to develop. But these big powers will not allow it, because if they allow it, with the potential and human resources that we have here, is going to threaten the global economy of this space.
Our time is up, gentlemen. No time to summarize, no time for last words, because our time is totally up. I really appreciate all of you, but we're still observing prophecy sticking to his gun, saying, look, these are the disadvantages.
We tried to export yam recently. Last year, what happened? Did the yam not got rot on the
Prof, you need to come out and address it. That is my point. Because you are
Thank you, gentlemen.
we need to come out.
Bye.